We talked about Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe on Friday, meeting with mining industry players to lead discussions there. And the aim is to stabilise that environment ahead of annual wage talks. The meeting also expected to encourage investor interest despite labour unrest. So we're joined now by Thabo Masebe, who is spokesperson for Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, and he joins us now. Good afternoon, Thabo, and thanks for joining us. I suppose the question is, you're going to get them all together in one room, is the Deputy President. Are you optimistic that you're going to come out with everyone smiling?
Yes, well, we are optimistic that all of them, all these organizations which are key role players in the mining sector, will appreciate, or they do appreciate, that the mining sector faces a crisis, and that all of them, together with government, need to work together to avoid this crisis. They need to work together to stabilize the sector and avoid the looming crisis. So over the past 2 weeks, there have been discussions with each one of these organizations, the trade unions in the mining industry, as well as trade union federations and the Chamber of Mines. And each of them did appreciate that we do indeed face a crisis and that we need to take bold steps to avoid this crisis.
Thabo, let's look first at the labour side. You've got two unions. This is unfamiliar territory for people operating in the mining sector and analysing it, because you've got the two unions, whereas before
it
was...
Not two unions. There are more than two unions.
I mean, there's the Cosatu-aligned union, the NUM, and I suppose you also have Solidarity, but you have the new player, AMCU. So have you managed to do you get a sense that they are talking to each other and that they have they found common ground for themselves?
No, I mean, the point that we will make, and everybody appreciates, all the trade unions do appreciate that there is law in South Africa which governs the conduct of labour relations. So they all appreciate they've got to conduct their affairs within the Labour Relations Act. So there's no question about that. So it's not an issue of one union, how one union relates to the other union. All players would have to accept that there is a law that governs labour relations in South Africa, and that all of them are bound by that law. And the same would apply to the employers. So there shouldn't really be a problem about that.
Well, it all sounds milk and honey at the moment. What are the areas where you're expecting some friction, perhaps? Outstanding issues, areas where there's not necessarily going to be agreement?
Let me say we don't start by looking at areas where there shouldn't be agreement. You have to start at the broad areas where there should be agreement. So the first point is that the mining sector is important for our economy, and it currently faces a crisis. So everybody has to agree. Then the next point is what is it that we can do together to avert this crisis? Then if you agree on that, the next point would be what are the things that we can do as individual parties involved in this sector to work towards finding a solution that would avert the crisis and stabilize the sector going into the future. So that's how we will approach the meeting on Friday.
Can we expect a formal report from that meeting? One thinks of the early 90s when the ANC and the Old National Party were negotiating. They would meet and then they would put out a minute or some record of what they'd done, some kind of commitment for the future. Are we expecting a statement by someone afterwards, or perhaps even a formal agreement which people would sign?
Well, I wouldn't want to go into the details or to prejudge what would happen in the meeting, but we do expect that all these players will come to a common understanding on what needs to be done. And certainly, yes, once they agree on that, there would be some form of a record which we can then remind each other in the future to say these are all the things that we've committed ourselves to do, and ensure that we indeed implement all of those things.